Good evening, class, and welcome to our performance management class this evening. Today, we are continuing on our um, to- uh, standard costs and variance analysis. Last time, we talked about standard costs, and I mentioned that standard costs are measured in per unit of output. This is the standard used for 1 unit. Then we also talk about budgets. We talked about a fixed budget, which is taken from the standard. And we said for a budget to be done, all you need to do is just multiply the volume that you want to make with the standard. You get a budget. And so we have a fixed budget at the beginning of the period. Then we have the actual result at the end of the period. That is when you will know the actual result. Then it's possible that the actual result, the volume in the actual result might differ from the budget. It could be higher, it could be lower. And so we need to now do something called the flexed budget. The flexed budget is the original budget converted to the same volume as the actual. Then it is that flexed budget you will use in doing your variances. And when you do your variances, you are reconciling the fixed budget and the actual. And we said what makes an adverse variance in cost is when the expected output or the budgeted cost is higher than the actual cost. If budget is higher than actual, it is adverse. But if actual is, sorry, if budget is higher than actual, yes, is um, is favorable. But if actual is higher than budget, then um, is adverse. Then the opposite is the case in the case of sales. Now, we are talking about cost variances now, and we said cost variances can be divided into material, direct material variance, direct labor variance, variable overhead, and fixed overhead variances. Now, all the variable overheads, all the variable costs, they are all alike. The fixed cost is treated slightly different. And we said that these variances can be further subdivided. And so that is what we'll be doing now. So let's look at the direct material variances. Now, direct material total variances or total cost variance. The total direct material cost variance is the difference between the actual material cost in producing the product and the standard material cost of producing those units. So it means here that when you are doing variance, you are comparing the flexible budget with the actual, because they said it is the difference between the actual cost of producing units, it could be let's say 100 units in a period, and the standard material cost of producing those same 100 units. Example, so they must be the same units, the same volume, actual volume of activity. Now let's look at it now. We have direct material total cost variance is standard material cost of actual production. You see, standard material cost of actual production. Now, this is actual material cost of actual production. So the key word here is they must be of actual production. Both of them must be of actual production. So it is, so I'll do something here. Let's take, let's derive a formula here. I'll come here and do the formula here. So this is performance management. Performance management. Okay, so this is standard costing and variance analysis. This is part 2. Okay, so we are on direct material cost variances. So that's what it is. Direct material, direct material cost variances. So we are looking at the total cost variance. So we are saying this is total direct material cost variance. Now this is the formula. We are saying here it is the actual unit produced, actual unit produced times the standard quantity times the standard price. Then this is actual unit produced. So both of them are also actual unit produced, actual quantity per unit, actual price. So we can do it this way. We can form a formula for it here. So we can say both of them are actual quantity. So I can say standard quantity. So I can say actual production or actual volume, standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity. Of course, it is actual volume. I will not be putting this actual volume again because we know it's actual volume times actual price. So that's the formula here. So you see here, standards are written first. So it means that the expected is the standard. The standard are written first, then the actuals are next. So standard quantity, standard price, actual quantity, actual price. That is what it is here. Because this is actual units produced, this is the standard quantity per unit. If you are to multiply this by this actual unit produced, so this is standard quantity for actual production times the standard price. Now this is actual quantity of actual production times actual price. So you see the standard is up or is written first, the actual is written last. If you find the difference, for it to be bracket here, it means there is a minus somewhere. So the variance is adverse if actual quantity, which is the one under, is higher than the standard, and favorable if the one on top, which is the actual standard quantity, is higher than the cost. Okay, so let's see an example here. Standard quantity standard price. Now we look at it now. I will leave all of this. I'll leave 2 pages. I'll leave 2 pages or so for the formula. I will go to page 3 or page 4 to go and do an example. So I'll start here, the example here, come back. So now this is standard material. When we have an example that is bigger than this, we'll go there and do it. So this is standard material. You are given 5 kg for 1 unit, and you are buying 1,000 naira per kg. It means that the standard cost of making 1 unit is 5,000 naira. Now you have produced 1,000 units, actual production. So materials purchased to do this 1,000 units happens to be 4,850 kg at a cost of 4,608. All right. So now what happened? If you are to apply the standard quantity, standard price, let me see if I can do it here. The formula here is, I will state the formula here. Direct material total variance is standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. So what is the standard quantity? The standard quantity for 1 kg, for 1 unit, happens to be 5 kg. Now, how many did you produce? You produce 1,000 units. This is the actual production. So this is standard quantity. What is the standard price? The standard price is 1,000 naira per kg. So you use 1,000 naira per kg. So this is 1,000 naira per kg. This is the quantity for 1 unit, and you did 1,000 units, right? You did 1,000 units. Okay. Now, this is the standard quantity. Then actual quantity. Actual quantity for this whole 1,000 units, you spent 4,800 kg. This one, of course, is 5,000 kg. You spent 4,800. And what is the price? The price, we would have said the price would be 4,680. Okay, let me do it in the other side here. So we say example 1, direct material total variance. So we say is standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. So what is your standard quantity? We said it was 5 kg, then that's for one, and you did 1,000 units multiplied by how much did you buy one, how much are you pricing buying 1 unit, 1 kg? It's 1,000 naira. So what will you get for standard quantity? Standard price. Standard quantity, standard price will give you 5 times 1,000 times 1,000. That gives you 5 million. Of course, this is 5 million. Then the actual quantity, actual price. We are told that we bought 4,850, 4,850 kg. Of course, that was what is used to do the whole 1,000 units. The price, this is 4,608,000. This is 4,608,000. So the whole total thing here is 4,608,000. If you want to know the price of one, all you need to do here is 4,608,000 divided by 4,850. That will be the price. So you leave it like this. You don't need to divide. You leave it like this. Everything gives me this. So what is the variance? Then the variance will now be the variance will now be 5 million minus 4,608,000. That will give me 392,000. So it will give you 392,000 naira. Now the fact that it is positive, because this is the standard, the next one here is the actual. So whenever it is positive, it is favorable. So for those of us who are using standard first, I will put actual next. If it is positive, it is favorable. But if you were to do actual first and you do standard next, and you now say actual minus standard, you now get negative, it is favorable. But it's better you do your standard first, actual next. So that's the same thing we have here, 392. Now, this is the total variance, 392. But now we don't know where this variance is coming from. Is it as a result of price or as a result of quantity? We need to investigate where this 392 is coming from. If it is as a result of price, then you will say the favorable price. You praise the purchasing manager for doing a job well done. If it is for quantity, then you look at the production manager that wow, you did a good job. Someone say please explain again. Can you expatiate where you want me to explain so that I can explain again? Where should I explain? I just did this formula. I explained this formula. Standard quantity, the standard quantity that was used to make this 1,000 units is 5 kg for 1 unit multiplied by 1,000 units will give me 5,000 kg. That's my standard quantity. What is the standard price for 1 kg? It's 1,000 you were given in the question. For 1,000, we did 5,000 kg and we are buying each of them 1,000 naira each. So it means that the whole standard cost should be, if you are doing 5 kg for 1 unit and you use 1,000 units, buying each of them 1,000 naira per unit per kg, it means that, let me write per kg, it means that you spent 5 million making 1,000 units. Then actually, you now spent, instead of 5,000 kg, you now spent 4,850 kg. Now, you spent 4,608,000. That is what you spent. So it means that if this is what you spent and you spent it on this quantity, what is the price? The price is simply this amount divided by this quantity to give you one. It may be less than 1,000 naira. We don't know if we didn't divide. Just leave it this way like this. And now this is your standard, this is your actual. When you less, you have a favorable variance. Then now we are told that the direct material cost variance could be analyzed into price variance and usage variance. A price variance measures the difference between the actual price and the standard, the actual price for the materials and the standard price. Whereas the usage variance measures the difference between the materials that were used in production and the materials that would have used in the standard. Okay, somebody is saying the actual price is 950. That's fine. We'll still come to that. We'll still come to that when we are doing price variance. It's fine. Now, let's look at that particular uh, that particular variance, direct material price variance. We'll come back to this example later. But let's look at the direct material price variance. It is going to be the standard material costs of actual production. So it means the actual quantity purchased multiplied by the standard price, then the actual material cost of actual purchases. It means the actual kg purchased multiplied by actual price. So what are we saying here? If we were to break this thing down into direct material price variance. Now, when we say price variance, it means it is the price that is the difference. The quantity is not in doubt. We are using the actual quantity. So it means that if the price is the variance, so what we will say here, we will say actual quantity, sorry, this actual quantity, that is what is common in both of them. Then this is standard price minus actual price. That is why it is called price variance, because the standard price is different from the actual price. If you want to make it, expound it again, it could be, it will be actual quantity standard price minus actual quantity actual price. Somebody is still sending a comment. Somebody is asking, direct material cost is different from direct material price. I don't understand. Direct material cost and price are the same thing. Direct material price variance. Everything is cost. The total cost, this is total cost. Okay, total cost. This total direct material cost variance can be broken down into two classes. We have direct material price variance and we have direct material usage variance. If you add the two, it will give you this direct material cost variance. Now, if you look at it, can you see cost here? Can you see price inside cost? So why are we asking if price and cost are different? So now if you look at it now, actual quantity purchase standard price, actual quantity standard price, actual quantity, that is actual kilogram purchase, actual price. This actual quantity, actual price. So if you look at it here, actual quantity is the common thing here. I bring it out and you just do the price. So now in the case of this thing we just did now, let's go and look for the direct material price variance. So direct material price variance. And we say it is going to be actual quantity standard price minus actual price. So what is the actual quantity produced? Actual quantity is um actual quantity is 4,800. That is the actual quantity of materials. So I will come here and I will say direct material price variance is 4,850 kg. What is the standard price for it? The standard price, we said it was 1,000 naira per kg. That is what we established here. Now, what is the actual price? The actual price, we said the other time, it was this divided by that. So it's going to be 4,608, 4,608 divided by 4,850. So we will now do it further. This one will give us 4,850 multiplied by 1,000 minus. Let's do it step by step. Somebody has given us 950 before. Let's confirm 4,608,000 now divided by 4,850. Voila. That gives us 950.10. You can just say 950. So we can say 950 points. Let me put as much as possible 0.10. Can say 0.10. So what we'll do now is this is 1,000. So everything here, I'll put everything in this calculator as it is. Even though I've put 950, I'll put everything in this calculator. I'll do this so that there's a minus in front of it, and I'll now say plus 1,000, right? Then multiply by 4,850 or multiply by 4,850. And that will give me, you see why I have to do it this way. I have to get a round number, 242,000. So I'm having 242,000 favorable. So you see, this direct material price variance has told us that out of this 292, 242 is coming from price. We got it at cheaper price from what we budgeted. And that's why we are having this favorable. Then the next one will be, after getting the direct material price variance, the next one will be direct material usage variance. Direct material usage variance. So we'll come now to direct material. Okay, so the same thing we did, we get 242. All right, so we'll come to this again. Direct material usage variance. The usage variance is calculated by comparing the actual quantity of material used to make the actual production to the standard quantity that should have been used to make those units. In other words, the actual usage of material is compared with the standard usage for the actual number of units produced. The difference is the usage difference. So let's look at it now. Standard quantity of material needed to make actual production. Actual quantity of material used to make actual production. Then the usage variance, they will multiply by the standard price. Now let me bring it down and break it down for you here. So it means that if there is a usage variance, the price is not in contention. And what price was used here? Standard price. So I will come here and I will say standard price. I will say standard quantity for actual production minus actual quantity. So that is the usage. If you want to expand it to become standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, standard price. All right. So let's look at this now. Let's look at this one now. We are looking at direct material usage variance. Direct material usage variance, we said DMUV is standard price, standard quantity minus actual quantity. All right, so what is the standard price? The standard price for 1 kg is 1,000 naira from the question. Standard quantity, of course, we know 5 kg for 1 unit, and we did 1,000 units, right? Now, the actual was 4,850. So this is as good as saying this is 1,000, this is 5,000 kg minus 4,850 kg. So this is like saying 1,000 naira multiplied by, what do we have here? Okay, I will say 5,000 minus 4,850, and that gives me 150. So this is 150 kg. So when you multiply by 1,000, multiply by 1,000, it gives me, what am I doing? 150 times 1,000. That's 150,000. So that is your variance. 150,000 favorable. So you see now, by the time you want to do total direct material cost variance, because material is a cost. Material is a cost. And so we are saying direct material cost variance. For the person asking me, why are we saying difference between cost and price? Material is a cost. Direct material is a cost. Now, inside that cost, when you want to buy your material, material has a price for you to buy it. So direct material, total material cost variance is equal to direct material price variance plus direct material usage variance. So the price, this is the usage variance, of course, here is 150 F. Then the other one here, we have 242. We have 242,000 F. 242,000 F. So if I were to add 150 to 242, 150 plus 242, it gives me the 392 that we had before. This is 392,000 F, which we had here at the beginning. So you see here that this 392,000 can be explained with direct material price and usage variance. Now, I want you to do something now for me. I want us to see how you can construct these things by yourself. Okay? Now, um, just a moment. That quantity. Okay, so how do you construct these things by yourself? So you know here that standard quantity, standard price, actual quantity, actual price. Okay, so in the first instance, all you need to do, all you need to do, comment. All right, let me do something here. So we have standard quantity, standard price. We have actual quantity, standard price. We have actual quantity, actual price. Now, I want you to watch something here. When I compare these two, when I compare these two, what I get here is standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, standard price. What have I done? I have done usage. So this is direct material usage variance. So you see here, standard quantity, standard price, just as we have it here in the beginning. Standard quantity, standard price, actual quantity, actual price. That is what we have here. Now, in between, because we said there must be actual quantity, the quantities. So this is the standard. Now, this is the standard budget. This is the fixed budget. This is the actual quantities. Now, this is the flexible budget. Now, this is the fixed budget, which we did first. This is the actual units, actual results. In the middle comes the flexed budget. How do we know a flexed budget? It is for actual quantity and the price will be standard because it's a budget. And so when you use the fixed and the flexed, it will give you usage variance. So that is where it comes out as the direct material usage variance. Now, if you compare this with this, what do you have here? Actual quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. Now, this is direct material price variance. So I want you to know how to do this. So that's the first step. If you know that the first thing to do is total direct. So now it means that if you are just comparing this with this is going to give you total, this is going to give you the total direct. So this is total direct material variance. When you compare this and this, that is when you are comparing the fixed budget and the actual. But now you want to break them down. You now have to you put the flex budget in the middle. The flex is recognized by actual quantity, but the price must be standard because it is a budget. So when you take top minus bottom, top minus bottom, the first one is direct material usage, top minus bottom, you have direct material price variance. So that's how I have derived. So if you know this, that means you can reconstruct this. That means you know this already, which is the basis for reconstructing this. But I will not say know that first. Know this standard quantity, standard price. That's the flex, the fixed budget, actual quantity, actual price. That's the actual result. Then in the middle sits the flexed, actual quantity, standard price. Then top minus bottom, when you see that standard price is common here, because standard price is common here, it is the quantity that are different. So it is usage. When you see that actual quantity is common here, it is a price that is different, then it is direct material price use price variance. That's how you know the first one. Now, it is important to note that once you can derive the first one, you can derive every other thing. Once you can derive the first one, you can derive every other thing. Before we derive every other thing, let's go and treat the other questions that we were given. Practice question number 2. A unit of product 123 has a standard cost liters of material A. Okay, so let's go down. I'll call this one practice question 2. Practice question 2. Now the product is 1 unit of product P123. So I will say product P123, then standard cost material A 5 liters. Say material A 5 liters per unit. Okay, at 3 naira per liter. Then, so this is the usage. Then this is 3 naira per liter. This is the cost. I'll call this one standard quantity. This is the standard price. You first of all see the standards. The standard direct material cost of producing 1 unit of course is therefore 15. So the standard direct material cost is therefore 15, right? In the month, in a particular month, 2,000 units of this were produced. So after the standard, you will see actual production 1,000 units. Okay, okay, 2,000. Sorry, I'll just make it 2,000 units. They used 10,400 liters. So, and I will say actual usage 10,400 liters. actual cost. I'll say actual actual cost 33,600. So this is 33,600. All right. We are asked to look for, or we'll be looking for the total direct, total, and we'll look at the other variances. So we come here, total direct material variance, we said is standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. Okay, so the standard quantity here, standard quantity for actual production is 5 liters multiplied by how many units were produced, because it is 5 liters for one times 2,000 units multiplied by how much did you buy 1 unit? 3 naira. This is 3 naira. Okay, so I'll be doing that one by one. So this is standard quantity, standard price happen to be this amount here. So let's look at it. We have 5 times 2,000 times 3 naira, which is 30,000 naira, which is 30,000 naira. Meanwhile, actual quantity, actual price happens to be 33,600, as we are giving the total actual cost. This is the total standard cost, total actual cost. If you want to break it down the way it is being done here, it means here we don't know how many liters we are used per unit, but we know that if you multiply these two, okay, we can know that if you want to know how many units, how many kg was used, you simply say, you want to know how many liters were used for one, you simply say how many liters were bought, 10,400, right? Divided by 2,000 units produced. That will give you the number of liters used for one. Of course, if we multiply it by 2,000, that is the 2,000 units produced, right? If you want to know the price for one, you simply say 33,600 divided by 10,400 and 10,400. Everything here will give you 33,600. If you want to break it down, everything here will give us 33,600. So now we've gotten our standard quantity, standard price. All we need to do is direct material, okay, total variance is going to give us 30,000 minus 33,600. So this is going to give us 3,600 adverse. So you don't put bracket again. Once it is negative, the answer is negative, put an adverse. So you want to check, where did it come from? Is it from price? Is it from usage? And we remember our formula here said standard quantity, standard price. I can decide to come here and I will say actual quantity, actual price. I will put my standard, sorry, actual quantity. I will say actual quantity, standard price. And I will take the first one. I can say direct material usage variance is going to give me standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, standard price, which is still the same thing as saying price is standard price is common, going to be standard quantity minus actual quantity. So what was going to happen here is the price that is the variance. How much do we sell one unit? Standard price is 3 naira. Standard price is 3 naira. Standard quantity they bought here is coming. So standard quantity they bought here is what did we get here? 5 times 2,000. 5 naira, 5 liters. 5 liters times 2,000. So that's what I will do here. 5 liters times 2,000. So that's the standard quantity. Actual quantity we are told was 10,400. So this is 10,400. So this remains 3 naira multiplied by 5 times 2. This is 10,000 liters minus 10,400 liters. So that means this is going to give me 3 naira. Of course, there's already a negative here. Minus 400. So 3 times 4 will give me 12. 1,200 adverse. So you see here, variance is 1,200 out of the 36. 1,200 is coming from usage. So you come here, direct material price variance. We said this is taken from, so I will come here, let me say I will say this is usage, this is price. So actual quantity, standard price, actual quantity, actual price. So this is actual quantity standard price minus actual quantity actual price. That's what we took from there. And what is common here is actual quantity. Actual quantity is common. It is the standard price. It is the actual price. So actual quantity here is 200 units. 200 units. 200 units. Okay, no, actual quantity is not the unit, sorry. Actual quantity here is 10,400. Actual quantity is 10,400 liters. What is the standard price for 1 liter? We said it was 3 naira. What is the actual price for 1 liter? We now said it's going to be 33,600 divided by 10,400. 33,000, 33,600 divided by 10,400. So what would that give us? Do it now. 33,600 divided by 10,400. That gives us 3.23. So I will come here. This is 10,400. This is 3 minus 3.23. I will not clear everything in my calculator, even though I'm writing the fraction. I'll just simply put this minus sign before it to achieve this. I'll simply say plus 3 Then I'll multiply by 10,400. So I'll multiply by 10,400. That gives me a round figure of 2,400. So this is 2,400 adverse. So you now see that total direct material cost variance is equals to direct material price, or can use usage first because usage was calculated first. Total material usage plus direct material price. So direct material price here is 2,400 adverts. Then the other one is 1,200 adverts. This gives me 3,600 adverts, which is what we got here, 3,600 adverts. So that's what we know in direct material cost variance. So we've succeeded in doing this 2.2. That's what we if we are to do all of this practice question, we have answered that. We have answered that. Even this one here, we have succeeded in answering all of them. So this is the second alternative calculation that they were telling us, which is what I have used here for you. Okay, so now that we've done the um, direct material cost variance, what could be the possible causes of variance in materials? What could be the variance? What is the reasons? Because sometimes when you are asked to calculate the variance, they might ask you to tell us the reason for those variances. Now, when variances occur and they appear to be very significant, management should investigate the reason for the variance. If the variance, if the cause of the variance is something within the control of management, the management should take action. Now, some of the possible causes of variances are as follows. Now, look at material variance, possible causes of favorable material variance, price variance. It could be that suppliers, different suppliers were used. Maybe they changed a supplier, and this second supplier was giving them a lower price than the first one. So because they are used to one particular supplier, the supplier was giving them a high price. They now changed supplier and they got a cheaper price, and so price variance improved favorably. Another one could be that material were purchased in bulk. When we say economy of scale, sometimes they will tell you if you buy bulk, you get discount. If you buy up to a certain volume, they will give you a particular discount. And so you took advantage of that discount and you bought more. And so the price will be favorable. Then also, it could be that you bought material that are of lower quality than the standard. So if you are supposed to have a particular standard and that thing is costly, you went to buy something of lower standard. Will I say substandard? So once you see that price variance is favorable, it's not all of them that is very good. Now, like this one, now, if you bought something substandard of lower stand of or lower quality than the standard, you will buy it cheaper, of course. But the problem here is if you buy things that are of lower quality standard, it also affects your usage variance. So you see, this will give you three possible causes of price variance being favorable. What about being adverse? One, different supplier were used. and this different supplier charged you higher than your normal supplier. Of course, nobody will want to go and do that, except if maybe the conditions given by your normal supplier is to, maybe change his condition because he's giving you something quality, and he now change his condition. You now decide to go and buy from, no, maybe you were having issues with your supplier. Your supplier is not usually giving you the at the time that you want. Maybe makes you miss your deadlines and all that. And you now decide to go and buy from a different supplier, and he's telling you, I'm going to supply you as at when due, but this you are going to pay a higher price. You say, okay, no problem, as long as you can meet your deadline. You now bought higher than what the normal person used to sell to you, you have a price adverse variance. Now, sometimes suppliers increase their prices more than expected, maybe inflation, dollar rate, and all that. Also, there will be severe shortage of material. And so, like, let's say fuel, when there's a shortage of fuel, you see the price of fuel will increase now, right? Let's assume that fuel happens to be a material they use in your production. So that will cause you to buy higher than the standard, right? Right. Now, it could also be that you are buying better quality than the standard. The standard you are using is a particular thing, and you are seeing something better quality. And you say, oh, I like this quality. You have to pay higher. So you have an adverse variance. So it's not all adverse variance that could be bad. It could also be that you are buying quality. Now look at material usage. Favorable material usage variance. Now, wastage. Of course, when you are using something, there must be wastage, right? When you want to sew clothes, you cannot tell me that you use every material in your clothes. Some of them will be waste. So the same thing, if you are producing, there must be something called normal loss or waste, which must be accounted for. So if the waste you were budgeting, the actual waste now became lower than what you are budgeting, of course you will get a favorable usage. So if you are supposed to say, let's say you are producing 100 100,000 loaves of bread, and you are just estimating that 10 cups of flour will be wasted, and it happened that you only wasted 8 out of 10, then it is a usage variance. That means you save 2 cups. Then it could also be that there is improvement in production methods, and which result in efficient use of materials. So when efficient use of materials, production methods changed. Maybe instead of using um, amateur people that are semi-skilled, you now brought people that are highly skilled, that manages your your material so well because of they are being trained. Production method has changed. Favorable variance will improve. What about adverse? Waste is higher than expected. We're expecting that 10 cups of flour will be wasted normally, and you now wasted 12. It could also be poor material handling, resulting in material breakages. When material is breaking, spoiling because of poor handling, it means that you are going to have more wastage. Then, materials that were used were cheaper than the standard. You see, when you have a price variance that is favorable because you bought cheaper material than the standard, then you now use it. See that price variance you achieved, favorable, will now be worrying the production. So it will now mean that why the purchasing manager will say, wow, I bought and I saved the company money. He has put problem in the hands of the production manager because it is cheaper than standard and there will be wastage and it will be thrown away. So you see here, you need to investigate each variance. What could be the possible causes of favorable variance, of adverse variance, both price and usage? You must be able to explain that. Now that we've done with material, direct material variance, now let's go to direct labor variances. Now let's see what we can learn from direct labor variance and how they relate to material variance. Now, the direct labor total variance, we have the standard labor cost of actual production and the actual labor cost of actual production. So now this is what we will say here. Now we'll come here and do something similar for labor. So I will say total direct labor cost variance. So this is the total. Of course, we will say standard, let's say something now. Let's do something now. We are going to be converting. That's why I say when you know one, you know the second one. We know standard quantity. We know that standard quantity, standard price, right? And we now said minus actual quantity, actual price. So what we will now do, this quantity we need to change to now become standard hours. So quantity changes to hours. Then this price will change, it will now become standard rate. So price changes to rate. Then this is now actual hours. So quantity changes to hours, price changes to rate. Everything remains intact. So everything remains, just the quantity changes to hours, price changes to rate. That's it. That's it. So actual units produced, standard hours per unit, standard rate per hour. That's exactly what we're doing. Now let's go to this Lagos manufacturing. Of course, remember the example we did before. That first example, we have been using it. Let me just create an instance, a second instance of this so that I'll refer you to that example. I'll refer you to that example so that when we were using, let's go there. Can you see where we are getting those figures? The 5,000, the 4,806.08. Can you see that? Then, of course, that's the flex, the comparison we did before. Then this was the actual thing we did here. Those actual things we did here. Lagos Manufacturing Limited. This is the standard labor. Did you see 5 kg was used before? And we buy them 1,000 naira per kg, right? Now, direct labor, they will tell us 4 hours. Let's read what's happening here. It told us 4 hours at 500 naira per hour, which is the same thing here. And that's the standard. Actual production in the period is 1,000. Remember, it was 1,000 that we used in the period as against 1,2 production. Okay, then labor hours is paid 4,200. Labor hours was paid 4,200. Where did we get that? Labor hours was paid for 4,200. Okay, let's forget about that. Labor hours paid for 4,200 at a cost of 2,121. Now, this is labor hours paid for. Now, this doesn't mean that this is the total hours that was worked. This is the hours that we are paid for. So it's possible that idle time and productive time is here. There's idle time, there's productive time here. So now, what are we asked to do now? We are asked to calculate the total cost variance, total labor cost variance. If we are to check here, sorry, if we are to check here, total labor cost variance is supposed to be the difference between this and this, right? Okay, so but let's check out our own. We have our standard here. Standard, let's go down. Wow, what did I do? Okay, this is not where I would have done it. Okay, no problem. Let me do it here. I would have come here and say direct labor cost total variance. So I said before, standard quantity, standard price minus actual quantity, actual price. Quantity price is now becoming standard as standard rate minus actual as actual rate. Okay, so now let's go down to do this. So what's our standard hours? So let's do it here. Standard hours is standard hours is 4,000 4 hours, 4 hours, and it is this is 4 hours per unit, 4 hours per unit. So it means that this is 4 hours per unit times 1,000 units, which will give me 4,000 hours. All right. Standard rate. Standard rate was given to us here as 500 naira per hour. This is 500 naira per hour. So it then means that standard hour, standard rate is going to be, so this is going to be 4,000 multiplied by 500. So what would that be? 4,000 multiplied by 500. That will give me 2 million. So this obviously giving me 2 million. All right, so what is this actual hours? Actual hours worked here, we are told is 4,200. So that is actual hours 4,200 as against 4,000. Actual rates. What is your actual rate? This is 2 million 121. 2,121. I'll simply say 2,121,000 divided by 4,200. I don't care about dividing it. I don't care about dividing it because I will still not use it. I will simply come here and say actual hours, which is 4,200 multiplied by actual rate is going to be 2,121,000 divided by 4,200. I will not need to divide them. Everything here is going to give me 2,121 because this 4,002 will cancel with this 4,002 to remain this 2,121. So why will I need to divide? So it then means that your total variance is going to give me 121,000 adverse. So that's what this is going to give us, 121,000 adverts. So that's what? Okay, sorry, 21,000. What did we do? 4,000, 4,200. I wrote 4,000. Oh, 4,200. That is where it's coming from, 4,200. So let me change this to 200, 4,200 hours. So the same thing here, this will be 200. So if we are to multiply again, 4,200 times 500, yeah, that's where the mistake is. So this is 2,100,000. Then this 100 will go, giving us 21,000 adverts. That is your total. So now it can be broken down into its components. If you have, okay, someone is still asking, 4 times 1,000 is 4,000, sir. I don't see where are we asking 4 times 1,000? This is 4,100. Where is the 4 times? 1,200 units. 4 hours times 500, which is equal to 2,000. Okay, actual units. Okay, 4 hours. The production is actual units. This is the actual labor hours that is paid for. So it is the actual labor hours that is paid for that we are going to use. Standard hours, not units. We use 4,200 hours. That is the actual labor hours that was used. So we will not take this. We are not going to use this because the question has given us what we are going to use. The standard hours here, the question told us is 4,200 hours. Okay, if we are to do it this way, 4,200, let's divide it by 4 hours. Let's see, 1,005. That means there's a mistake somewhere, but that's notwithstanding. 4 hours is for 1 unit, right? They are supposed to use it to do 1,000 hours. But this is the labor hours paid for. So it's as good as using 1,050 units for this. But I am saying here, labor hours paid for is different from productive labor hours. So let me amend this thing here. Let me amend it again. Let me amend it for you here again. So let's learn something from this. We are going to be using 4 hours for 1 unit times 500, which is times 1000 units. So times 1000 units supposed to give me 4,000 hours. Why am I putting naira? It's going to be 4,000 hours. This is the active hours. But now, hours paid for is 4,200. Of course, 200 is idle time. They are supposed to use 4,000 hours to do this work, but they paid them for 4,200. So it means they have they have looked at wastage. They have included wastage, hours wastage. Because just like as we have wastage in material usage, you can also have wastage in hours. So hour wastage has been put into it. That's why they are paying for 4,200. All right, so gotten 21. So now let's look at labor efficiency variance. Now, efficiency variance is the same thing. We are going to use that of usage variance to do efficiency variance. So let's look at this scenario back again. So we said standard hours, standard rates, actual hours, actual rates. Then at the end, we have actual hours, which is the actual hours, yes, standard rate. Someone is still asking, is it 4,000 we are going to use or 4,2? We are going to use 4,2 because the question says labor hours paid for. Look at the question here. It said labor hours paid for. Normally, labor hours usually have uh, what is worked and what is paid for. Use the labor hours paid for when you are calculating variance. But there's sometimes called idle time variance. In idle times variance, we'll do something about it. But if you look at it now, you are going to use the labor hours you are paid for. It's just like quantity and the quantity you paid for materials and the one you use. So just use the labor hour paid for, as in the case of this example. So if you are using labor hours paid for, standard 4,200 hours should cost us 21, but it cost us actually 2120. So that is what it is. So it means that idle time has been paid for. So forget about idle time. So look at the actual hours paid for. If they don't tell you actual hours paid for, that is where you will now calculate this multiplied by this and you get 4,000. In that case, you are assuming that there was no idle time. All right, so let's continue. Then what we are saying, this is direct labor efficiency variance. In the efficiency variance, we are going to be using these two for efficiency. Efficiency has to do with usage, right? So instead of direct material usage variance, when you are doing labor, it changes from usage to efficiency. So we'll say this is, and of course, this is rate. This is rate. So instead of price, as in the case of cost of direct labor, of direct material, we use price and usage. In the case of labor, it is rate variance. So you say direct labor efficiency variance is going to give you standard hours standard rate minus actual hours standard rate, which is still going to be standard rate is common, standard hours minus actual hours. So this is the formula we shall use. So let's go down here and apply the formula. So we just say direct labor efficiency variance, we said is standard hours standard rate minus actual hours standard rate, and we said it's also going to be standard rate standard hours minus actual hours. So what is the standard rate that we are paying our laborers? Our standard rate we are paying them here is 500 naira. Okay, so we are paying them 500 naira standard. Now, what is the actual standard labor hours? Our standard labor hours here is standard labor hours. This is where you will not do that thing that you were saying. Standard labor hours should have been 4 hours multiplied by 1,000 units. Then the actual labor hours was 4,200. So you see, 4,200. So now that means here, this is 4,000, and this is 4,200, and this is 500. So 200 times 5 is going to give me 10,000. So let's see, 400, 4,000 minus 4,200, that's minus 200 multiplied by 500, that gives me, what am I getting? 4, 4 times 1,000, that gives me 4,000, right? Minus 4,200, that's 200, multiplied by 500. I'm getting 100,000. Yes, that's it, 100,000. So this is 100,000 adverts. Now, total happens to be 21,000 adverts. Wow. Efficiency, it means that we spent more money on paying laborers than the standard. It means this is what we are spending on idle, wastage. It may not be what we spend on idle, but you see here, this is an adverse variance from the standard. This is what we're supposed to be paying them, the rate, 4,000. We're not paying them 4,200. Of course, this is idle. Efficiency variance, adverse. Now let's look at direct labor rate. Okay, sorry, this is not the amount. This is not idle price. This is the number of hours they are supposed to spend doing the job. And this is the hours, this is the number of hours they're supposed to spend doing the job. But they now spent 4,200 hours doing the job. So it means that they spent more hours in doing a job than they were supposed to. So this is like the wastage, the time wastage. This is what it costs the company for those time wastage, not not idle. So this is rate variance. So let's go up here and derive the rate variance here. Let's go up and derive the rate variance. So this is direct labor rate variance. Of course, we're going to be looking at these two. Both of them have actual, but the rates are different. Actual hours standard rate minus actual hours actual rates. Okay, so if you look at it, actual hours is common, standard rate minus actual rate. All right, so let's go back down here and derive it. So rate variance, we have actual hours standard rate minus actual hours actual rates. Can still leave it like this, sort of breaking it down. Actual hours, let me give more room. Let me come here. Actual hours used is 4,200, right? That's the 4,200 hours. We could say because the actual hours is common. What is the standard rate? Our standard rate happens to be 500 naira per hour. So this is 500 naira per hour. Now minus what is the actual rate? What is the actual rate used? The actual rate used here, you need to divide this figure by 4,200. 21,000. So this is 2121 divided by 4,200. So if you have to multiply both sides here, this will give me, if you have to open the brackets, or if you have to spread it out like this, the way we did, this would have given us 4,200 times 500. This would have given us 2,100,000. This would have given us 2,100,000. Of course, this is going to give us 2,121,000. So that will give us how many? Is that what they got there? Okay, they did idle time variance. Okay, we're going to get that back to that, and efficiency variance. Okay, we'll go back to that. We'll go to that. So coming, let's see what was done here. This is efficiency. Let me see how the rate variance was handled here before. Where is the rate variance here? Just a moment. Something I'm not doing right. Okay, this is total cost. Direct labor cost is 121. Rate variance is what I was trying to do here. Oh, that means there's something we missed out when we are doing the beginning calculation. I will correct it. I'm going to correct it. So now this is 21,000 adverse, the rate variance. So it's correct. Going back to what we did before, let me correct myself here. The total cost variance, the total cost variance is total labor variance. 4 hours times 1,000 as we did. This was actually correct. So let's do it again. 4,000. This was actually correct. This is going to give me 2 million. This is going to give me 2 million. And this is going to give me 121,000. So this is actually correct. So if you are calculating standard hours, this is the standard hours for 1 unit. How many units was made? Okay, this is not naira now. How many units were made? How many units were made? We made 1,000 units. So standard, the fixed budget should have been, if you are using 4 hours for 1 unit and you made 1,000 units, it's going to be 4,000 hours that should have been used. That's it. And if you are paying 500 naira per hour, it means 4,000 hours is the standard you budgeted, 500, so it's 2 million. This standard budget, you didn't put just how much we are supposed to budget for in a standard environment. So this is it here. Now we now find out that they paid more than what they actually derived more hours. They use more hours than the standard. That's why we have 121. So if you look at it now, direct labor total variance is equal to efficiency plus rate variance. Efficiency variance is 100,000 adverse. Rate variance is 21,000 adverse. If you add them together, it gives me 121,000 adverse. So that's what we got here. So now this efficiency variance, we can further divide it into two. So we can divide that efficiency variance further into two. The efficiency variance can be given there's idle time variance. So we can look at idle time. Just a moment. Okay, just to be sure that I'm beginning. Okay, so this 100,000, we can look at idle time variance. Okay, idle time variance is that idle time occurs when direct employees are paid but have no work to do. It may be because of production breakdown, maybe machine breakdown, they're waiting for them to fix it, or maybe there is a time waiting for work to be done. Maybe there's a bottleneck in a particular production. So maybe um, there is a production process whereby process one, process two, and process three. And maybe there is a queue in process two. And so because there's a queue in process two, it is the bottleneck. It is the one that is going very slow. You find out that there will be a time process one will no longer be working to wait until the hold up in process two has cleared before it will now bring more work. So you see that time that they are stopping because of that bottleneck. And maybe process three is faster than process two. And so there will be a time process one and process three will be waiting, and process two is the bottleneck. So those times that that bottleneck happened, they are still paying them. Then there's a shortage of vital materials and they have to wait for new delivery, or maybe are waiting for customers' orders and it's not coming. So a feature of idle time is that it is recorded, and the time, the hours lost due to idle time are measured, is measured as part of the efficiency variance. Okay? Now, idle time not part of standard cost. If idle time is not included in the standard cost, um any idle time that occurs will lead to adverse variance. So it means that this is the actual hours paid for. The actual hours you paid for is usually more than the hours you worked for. Now, minus the actual hours worked will give you the idle time. Then you multiply it by the standard rate. So what happened here is idle time variance, idle time variance. This is idle time variance. If you want to calculate idle time variance, which is part of efficiency variance, okay, direct labor efficiency variance. I will say idle time. So if you look at efficiency variance, it's the same thing here, but you see here, you simply say idle time variance is the same thing as the standard rate multiplied by, now you say um hours paid minus hours worked. So that's just it. Hours paid minus hours worked. So instead of standard hours, actual hours. So hours paid, it means this standard hours. It is hours paid for. So now for hours paid for, you are looking at um the hours worked, hours paid for, yes. Hours paid for now usually is bigger than the hours worked. So what happened here is you have 500 naira that you are paying. You paid for how much? You paid for, let's see how much you are paid for. They paid for 4,200 hours. That is what they paid for. So you paid for 4,200 hours. Now, how many hours was worked? How many hours was worked? 4,100 hours. So where did they get that 4,100 hours? Let's see here. If anything, is per unit. Trying to see where we would have gotten the 4,100 hours. Okay, so look at the thing here, the example here. Standard hours here, they use 4 hours and they are paying them 500 naira. This is the hours paid for. Now, we calculated the efficiency variance. Now, making 1,000 units at 4 naira is 4,000. Making 1,000 units, use 4,000 2 hours. Okay, this is the efficiency variance. I want to see that part. Okay, it was just given to us in the question here. They use 4,100 hours. If they use 4,100 hours, meaning that if they told us in the question that they use 4,100 hours in the work, why they pay them for 4,200 hours, it then means that this would have been 500 times 100, which would be how much? 50,000. 50,000. What's this minus? Okay, no, it's 50,000 favorable. So it's going to be like 50,000 favorable. Is it favorable or adverse? It's adverse. Okay, so I'll have to change the formula. Hours worked for. Okay, I'm coming. Hours worked is 4,001, and they are paying them for hours worked minus hours paid for. Let me change the formula. Hours worked, hours worked minus hours paid, hours paid. So they happen to work for they happen to work 4,100 and they are paid 4,002. And so it is a minus here, and it's 500, 50,000 favor, 50,000 adverse. So it means that they work for a shorter hours and you are paying them more. So it means because you are paying them more than they work, you have made an adverse. Then it then means that productive time is 4,100. This is the productive time, 4,100. Then the extra that you are paying them, you are paying them for extra 100 hours that they didn't work. So that is what it means. That's the idle time. Idle time is always an adverse. Then they say here again, adverse idle time is not part of the standard time. Okay. All right. So you can even say that once you have calculated the idle time, you can now do the efficiency variance. Before we have efficiency variance here of how much? 100,000. This is direct labor efficiency variance. You can now break it down into um, idle time and efficiency variance. So all I will just need to do here is, if you've gotten idle time, just minus it from the efficiency variance to do productive efficiency time. Let me use that one. Productive time efficiency variance. So let me give it that name. I can say productive time efficiency variance. Okay, productive time efficiency variance. Okay, so what it means now is it's still the same thing we did before. All I will just simply do here is just to make it easy, 100 adverse minus 50 adverse, that will give you 50 adverse. So that's it, because the same calculation we did here is what we are still going to do. I was not supposed to calculate this one here, but no problem. The calculation we did here is still what we are supposed to do. The same calculation where we use 4,200, sorry, where we use 4,200 versus 4,000. We change it now to 4,100. This 4,200 would have been 4,100 and would give us 50. So that's it. So just know that when you calculate your labor variance, you have efficiency variance and we have rate variance. The same way you calculate your direct material is the same way you calculate your direct labor. All you need to do is change the quantity to hours and change the price to rate. And just know again too that efficiency variance, we have idle time inside. So all you need to do is number of hours worked for minus number of hours paid for multiplied by the standard time. Now let's go for the next one here, which is direct. It's not direct. It's no longer direct. It's called variable overhead. Let's say total variable overhead variance. Total variable overhead variance. Okay. Total variable overhead variance. Before we go that, we'll look at possible reasons why there is possible reasons for labor variance. One of them for favorable rate variance could be using direct labor employees who were relatively inexperienced and new to the job. You're looking for cheaper labor. You didn't bring experienced people, you bring people that are fresh out of graduate, want to pay them low amount of money than what you have budgeted. And so you get rate variance cheaper. Then the actual pay increase that you're supposed to pay them, either pay increase, overtime bonus, and all that, happens to be less than what you expect, it's a favorable. Then adverse rate variance, increase in pay for employees. So you've planned that you are going to be paying your workers 30,000 naira minimum wage. The minimum wage now increase to how much now? 70,000. It's going to become adverse because you increase your labor pay, increase you increase their rank, increase their pay. Then working overtime paid at a premium above basic rate. So anytime people work overtime for you and you pay them overtime premium, you are going to be having adverse rates. Then when you are using employees that are skilled and experienced and you are paying them more, you are using a higher grade laborers and you are paying them well. Maybe you use expatriates and you pay them well to lead to rate variance. What about efficiency variance? Favorable one, efficient method of working that makes you save time. Then good morale among the workforce with the result that the workforce is more productive. Incentive schemes introduced that may make them work more quickly. Then using employees who are more experienced than the standard give you efficiency variance favorable. What about adverse? People who are less experienced than the standard to make you to waste time that you would have used for productive things, they are wasting time. Okay. Then an event causing poor morale. Maybe you you did not boost their morale. Maybe you're supposed to give them a pay rise. You didn't pay them. You're supposed to give them a kind of bonus. You didn't pay them. Maybe it was December period. Every other company they are collecting rice and vegetable oil, and your company did not collect anyone, and they're still telling you to come to work December 25th, come to work January 1. We didn't close for the year. This kind of things can cause poor morale, right? Telling them to work Mondays to Friday, Mondays to Saturdays even, and also telling them to even come on Sunday without adequate compensation. This one could cause poor morale and it may lead to efficiency variance being adverse. Now let's look at production overhead, variable overhead. Okay, I'll put production, variable production overhead, variable production overhead variance. Now, if you remember, variable overhead are calculated using direct labor hours. Variable overhead are normally calculated using direct labor hours. So in that case, variable overhead variances, variable production overhead variances will be using exactly direct labor variances. So we have here standard hours, standard rate, actual hours, actual rates. We have actual hours, standard rates. That's what we have before, right? Then if we take these two, this is the total. If we take this and this is going to be what? Efficiency. Just like we did in direct labor variance. Then instead of calling this one rate, call it expenditure. So instead of calling it rate, you call it expenditure. So let's derive it now. Total direct, okay, it's not direct. Total variable, okay, production. Total variable production, yes. Variable production overhead variance is standard as standard rate minus actual as actual rate. Then if we are to do variable efficiency variance, it will be standard as standard rate minus actual as standard rate, which we can still say standard rate is there, standard hours minus actual hours. Then if you want to do variable, what am I doing? Wow, this is not where I should have been doing that. Okay, I will still come back. Let me do it up here where I'm building the formulas. Let me come here. Total variable production overhead variance is said by using standard hours, standard rate, actual hours, actual rate. Center we have actual hours, standard rate. We have to do the total. This is going to be total. This is going to be efficiency. This is going to give me expenditure. So let's derive them. Formula: total variable overhead variance. That will give me standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, actual rate. Then we have variable overhead efficiency variance. That will give me standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, standard rate. So standard rate is common, standard hours minus actual hours. Then we have variable overhead expenditure. Expenditure variance. We have actual hours, actual rate, sorry, standard rate, actual hours, standard rate minus actual hours, actual rate. So actual hours is common here. Actual hours is common. Standard rate minus actual rate. All right, so let's apply the formula here. Let's apply the formula here. Why is this thing hanging now? Just a moment. system has hanged. Just a moment, it's going to come down. All right. So let's apply the hang again. Okay, it's coming down. All right. So here is where we want to apply our formula. So I'll claim all of this. We'll claim them now so that we will solve the question. All right. So the question is here. Standard variable production overhead. So let's bring it out. Standard variable production overhead. Standard variable production overhead. We are told here 4 hours, 200 naira. So it means 4 hours. That's the standard hours. Then the standard rate is how much? 200 naira. 200 naira per hour. Right? How many units? Need to know the number of units. Actual units is what? 1,000 units. All right. Now let's go to the actuals. Variable overhead. Okay. We have variable overhead, actual variable overhead. Is how much here? 945. This is 945,000. We also told labor hours paid for is 4,200. Let me call it here. Labor hours paid for 4,200. So what are we going to do now? I'm supposed to clean up this. So let's look at the total variable overhead variance. Is standard hours, standard rate, actual hours, actual rates. Standard hours, standard rate is normally is 4 hours multiplied by 1,000 units multiplied by 200 naira per hour. Then this one we have the 945 already. So what will this give us? We have 4 times 1,000. You have to be very careful when you're doing variance. If your total is so high, then it means there is something you have not done. So this 800,000. If your total is so high, it means that you've done something wrong. 945. So what happened here? 800 minus 945 145 adverts, 145,000 adverts. So that's your total. So let's see, that's what we got here, 145 adverts. Now this can be broken down into expenditure variance and efficiency variance. So let's do it our own way. Expenditure variance. We started with efficiency variance before we go to expenditure. So we can say variable overhead efficiency variance. We said it was standard hours, standard rate minus actual hours, standard rate. So the standard is the same, standard rate, standard hours minus actual hours. So which means here we are paying them 200 naira. What is the standard labor hour? Standard labor hour will be, you're supposed to pay standard variable overhead. You're supposed to pay, that's the question, this efficiency we are doing. Okay, 200 naira. You're supposed to pay, you're supposed to pay how many hours? 4 hours. The rate is 200 multiplied by 1,000 units. Okay, and here actual hours worked, actual hours paid for happens to be 4,200. So now this means here, this is 200, this is going to be 4,000 minus 4,200. So this is going to give me 200 times minus 200, which is 4,000 adverse. Efficiency variance happens to be, what do we have here? Okay, they said 1,000. Okay, labor hours worked for. This was given here in the question. So I will need to change it to the labor hours worked for. We did that before. This is labor hours paid for. That is what we are using before. Labor hours worked for is what I'm going to use. 4,100 was worked for. So we need to know hours worked for versus hours paid for. When you are doing efficiency, use worked for. When you are using rate, use paid for, because that is what is being paid for. Efficiency, worked for. So this is going to be 100 instead of 200. So this is going to give me 2,000. It's going to give me 2,000 adverse. Okay. Then let's look at variable overhead rate variance. We said the rate variance is, this is hanging again. Actual hours, standard rate, actual hours, actual rates. So actual hours worked is 4,100 multiplied by the standard amount 200. Then actual hours, actual rate is 945. So if you multiply this, 41 times 200, that gives me 820. So this 820 minus 945. And that'll give me 820 minus 945. That gives me 125. 125,000 adverts. Is that what they got here? Yeah, 125 adverts. That's fine. So if we are to add the both of them, total overhead, the total variable, total variable overhead variance is efficiency plus expenditure variance. So the one we just, oh sorry, rate variance or expenditures, not rates, it's expenditure variance. Expenditure variance. Let's see what they call it here. Expenditure. Yes. So instead of rate, we call it expenditure. Let me write it well. Expenditure. Okay, in expenditure we have 125,000 adverts. In efficiency, we have 2,000 adverts. So that should be giving us 127,000 adverts. Is that what we got? I've made a mistake somewhere. This is not 2,000, this should be 20,000. Let's do it again. 200 times 100 is 20,000, and I put 2,000. That's where the problem is. Let's correct this. This is 20,000. So I will now take it down. Instead of 2,000, I will say 20,000. So that should be 145,000. That is where we got that total variable overhead efficiency variance. All right, so what have we really done? What we have really done now is, let me give a, a summary here. Cost variances that are variable in nature. We have direct material, we have direct labor, we have production variable overheads. Of course, we have not talked about fixed production, fixed overhead. We have not talked about this. There's a different way of handling it, which will not be discussed in today's class. So we have standard quantity, standard price, actual quantity, actual price. Then at the center, we have actual quantity, standard price. And we say for material, this is total direct material. And this is usage, This is price. Then we now said for labor, so I will call this is direct material, direct material. Then for labor, all you need to do is to change it. Standard hours, standard rate, actual hours, actual rate. At the center, we have actual hours, standard rate. So this is total direct labor variance. This one here will give us efficiency. And this one here, we will now use our rate. So usage change to efficiency, price change to rate. Just as quantity change to hours, price change to rate. Then we now have variable overhead. We're still using the same thing we use in labor, standard hours, standard rate, actual hours, actual rate. At the center, we have actual hours, standard rate. The same thing we did in labor. Now the total here is total variable overhead variance. This will still be called efficiency. Now this will now change from rate to expenditure. Then we know here that in labor, efficiency, we can do a separate one here, and we say standard rate all over hours worked minus hours paid. This one is for idle time. So this is the summary of what we have done so far today. All right, so I will ask you to look at all these examples that we have discussed here and go out and work them out again. In our next class, you would have done all these practice questions 1 to 9, and you also look at how your knowledge gap is going to be bridged using the formula that I've given you, how to derive it so that you can replicate your cost variances. Now, variable production overhead, we said possible causes, forecast in costs not materializing, forecast increase. So you increase your cost in your forecast, but it was not materializing. Wow, it's favorable for you. Then adverse could be unexpected increase in energy prices. This is for expenditure variance. What about efficiency? Efficient method. Anything that is affecting efficiency variance of direct labor is also going to affect variable overhead. Anything that affects expenditure or rate variance in labor, okay, rate variance in labor might not have a total impact on expenditure in variable overhead, but anything for efficiency in direct labor is also going to affect variable overhead. So just note that difference. So in our next class, We'll be looking at fixed overhead, how we're going to be dealing with fixed overhead. You see things like over absorption, under absorption, you see expenditure variance, you see volume variance, and you see capacity variances. After we've finished treating fixed variances, then we are going to go into the sales variance. After doing that, we will now reconcile our variances. And that is how we are going to do part 3, which is in the next class. In part 4, we will be taking um, a full question from the past question and see how it is being done so that we can know how a variance question is being attempted in the exam. In part 5, we will enter advanced variance and we'll see, we might call it part 5 or we might call it advanced variance part 1. Then in part 2 of advanced variance, we will go into solving ICANN past question on advanced variances. So thank you for the time spent in today's class. We don't want to rush you on this topic so that you can understand how these formulas can be created by yourself, because these formulas will never be given to you. But when you understand how you can generate them yourself, find out that variance question is going to be an easy question for you to tackle. Don't forget, the idle time variance might be a problem for you in the exam. Don't forget, all you may need to know is the standard quantity, standard price, actual quantity, actual price. And we said the standard is the fixed budget, the actuals is your actual production. At the middle is your flexed budget, which must be on actual production. So it's going to be either actual quantity but standard price. That's if you know that for quantity or for direct material, all you need to do is just to change quantity to hours, price to rate, and you are good with labor. Use the same thing in production overhead. So just change the rate to expenditure and you are good. So thank you so much. Go and practice all these things that we've done, and I'll see you again in my next class. Good night.